When a man crosses 60, he often discovers that intimacy is no longer exactly the same as it was in his younger years. But that doesn't mean it has to be less passionate or less satisfying. In fact, it can be even better if he understands the subtle but powerful changes happening in both his own body and his partner's. And one of the biggest differences between a fulfilling intimate experience and a disappointing one comes down to what happens before the main act, foreplay, which is far more important at this stage of life than most men realize. Yet sadly, many older men unknowingly make two very common mistakes during foreplay that silently rob them of connection, arousal, and emotional closeness, mistakes that can turn what could have been a night of deep passion into an awkward, rushed, or even physically uncomfortable experience for their partner. And the truth is, most men are never taught how a woman's needs change after 50, 60, or 70, meaning they often use the same techniques that might have worked in their 30s but now fall flat, leaving their partner less responsive and them feeling frustrated or even rejected. But here's the thing: after 60, a woman's body responds differently due to natural hormonal shifts such as lower estrogen, reduced natural lubrication, and changes in blood flow to intimate areas. All of which means she generally needs more time and more emotionally connected stimulation before she's physically ready. Yet mistake number one is that many men rush the process entirely, touching or kissing for a minute or two and then moving quickly to the main event, which not only feels physically unprepared for her but can also make her feel unseen or unvalued, as though her pleasure is secondary. And this rushed approach is one of the quickest ways to create disconnection in the bedroom, especially because as women age, their arousal curve often takes longer to rise, meaning that skipping proper build-up can make intimacy uncomfortable or even painful for her, which in turn can make her avoid sex altogether, reinforcing a negative cycle. And here's the second big issue. Mistake number two is treating foreplay like a checklist of physical actions rather than an emotional dance, focusing purely on touching the usual spots, instead of reading her body's signals, slowing down, and bringing in elements of emotional teasing, verbal connection, and deep eye contact. Because for many women over 60, emotional stimulation becomes just as important, if not more so, than physical touch. And when a man understands this and learns to combine gentle, unrushed, varied physical contact with genuine emotional presence, the change in his partner's responsiveness can be dramatic, transforming not just the physical pleasure but also the emotional bond they share, which is why urologists, sex therapists, and relationship coaches alike emphasize that foreplay after 60 is less about techniques you've memorized and more about being truly present, attuned, and patient. But to do that effectively, you first need to understand exactly how these two mistakes develop, why they're so common, and what specific changes you can make starting tonight to avoid them. And once you do, you'll find that not only does your partner's desire increase, but your own confidence in the bedroom skyrockets because you're no longer relying on guesswork. You're connecting on a deeper level and giving her the experience she truly craves. Now, the second common foreplay mistake that so many men over 60 unknowingly make is rushing into intercourse too soon without giving enough time for your partner's body to fully respond. And while you might think this only matters in younger couples or in the movies, it becomes even more important with age because the female body changes in very specific ways after menopause that require more time, patience, and intentional build-up for physical readiness and emotional openness. And this isn't just about being polite or romantic, it's about biology. You see, after estrogen levels drop, a woman's vaginal tissue becomes thinner, more delicate, and often less naturally lubricated. And if you try to move too quickly into penetration before her arousal has built enough to bring blood flow and natural moisture to those tissues, it can cause discomfort, micro tears, and even lingering pain that makes her associate intimacy with something she subconsciously wants to avoid. And over time, this can create a subtle but powerful distance between you. Many men, especially in long-term relationships, develop a shortcut routine, where they touch briefly, maybe kiss for a minute, then move into sex out of habit. But what they don't realize is that their partner's mind might still be half in the grocery list or worrying about whether the door is locked while their body hasn't yet switched over into full desire mode. And this mismatch in timing is one of the biggest reasons women lose interest. The good news is that fixing this isn't about learning something complicated, it's about slowing down and reframing foreplay as the main event rather than just the prelude, which means extending the time you spend kissing, caressing, exploring, and verbally connecting before you even think about penetration, and by doing so, you're not only making her feel more pleasure, you're also giving her nervous system time to shift from the sympathetic thinking and doing mode into the parasympathetic feeling and receiving mode that makes intimacy deeply satisfying for her. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to do this is to start with areas of touch that feel safe and non-sexual at first. Her shoulders, her arms, the small of her back. Then gradually move toward more sensitive areas as you notice her breathing deepen, her muscles relax, and her body subtly leaning into you. And as you do, don't underestimate the impact of your voice. Murmuring little things you appreciate about her in that moment, or recalling a fond or playful memory, helps her feel emotionally connected, which in turn speeds up her physical arousal. I've spoken to many women over 60 who say the most erotic thing their partner ever did wasn't anything they saw in adult movies, but rather the moment he slowed down enough to make them feel completely seen, desired, and unhurried. And this is where men who take their time truly stand out. Another key here is to pay attention to signs of readiness rather than assuming a set amount of time is enough. Watch for her pelvic area subtly pressing toward you. Listen for soft sounds or changes in breathing rhythm. And if she begins to move her hands over your body more freely, it's usually a signal her mind and body have synced into the moment. Skipping these cues and jumping in too soon is like trying to enjoy a cake before it's fully baked. It just doesn't have the same magic. Plus, when you slow down and savor the buildup, you also give your own body a chance to stay in control, which can be especially helpful if you've noticed changes in your stamina or erection strength with age. In fact, extended foreplay often leads to better erections and a stronger connection afterward because your body stays engaged without the pressure to perform instantly. And here's a little secret. Many women over 60 find that if they are thoroughly aroused before penetration, they experience more intense, full-body pleasure than they did in their younger years, simply because they've learned to tune into sensations more deeply when given the time and space to do so. So, the next time you're together, think of foreplay not as something to get through, but as something to explore fully, like savoring the slow pour of a fine wine. And you may be surprised to find that she not only becomes more eager but starts initiating more often because she feels safe knowing you won't rush her. Now let's talk about something most men don't realize until it's too late. How easily a woman's interest and excitement can drop if you rush the process or misinterpret her responses. Women over 60, just like at any age, often need more time and a more gradual build-up to truly feel ready for intimacy. But after menopause, hormonal changes can mean physical arousal takes even longer to match emotional readiness. This doesn't mean she's not attracted to you. It means her body's natural processes require more gentle coaxing, more patience, and above all, more emotional connection. One of the most overlooked truths in intimacy is that your partner's desire starts in her mind, not her body. The touches, kisses, and caresses are only part of the equation. What she's thinking, how safe she feels, and how connected she feels to you are what determine how far the night will go. This is why skipping emotional foreplay, things like warm conversation, shared laughter, compliments, and genuine interest in her day, can be such a huge mistake. Too many men make the error of thinking that foreplay starts when you're already in the bedroom, but for her, it starts hours earlier. If you're distant or distracted during dinner, and then suddenly switch on the romantic gestures later, she might feel like it's forced or purely physical for you. Another common misstep is sticking to the same script every time, same touch, same pace, same order, because routine can make things predictable in a way that dampens excitement. Women over 60 often say that they still love passion, but they crave variety and surprise. Whether that's a slow, lingering kiss in the kitchen when she's not expecting it or a change in how you touch her, like spending more time exploring areas you've previously rushed past. One big change men need to understand is that as a woman ages, her erogenous zones can become more sensitive in some places and less sensitive in others, so what worked when she was 30 or even 50 may not have the same effect now. This is why communication is essential, not in a clinical or awkward way, but in a playful, teasing manner that invites her to share what feels good today, not just what used to. It's also important to avoid assuming that she's ready just because she's not stopping you. Many older women will go along with physical intimacy out of love, habit, or wanting to please their partner, even if they're not fully aroused yet. But this can lead to discomfort and even resentment over time. Paying attention to subtle cues, her breathing, the way her muscles respond, the warmth of her skin, can tell you more than her words might. And here's the truth. The more you slow down and make her feel genuinely desired, not just physically needed, the more responsive she'll become, and the more confident and connected you'll feel as a man. If you avoid these common foreplay mistakes and instead focus on curiosity, patience, and playful exploration, you'll notice her body language shift, her touch will linger longer, her voice will soften, and her eyes will carry that unmistakable spark. That's when you know you're no longer just going through the motions. You're creating an experience that revives passion, deepens trust, and makes intimacy something you both eagerly look forward to instead of just something you do out of routine. And as we wrap up, it's important to understand that avoiding these two common foreplay mistakes is not just about improving your performance in the bedroom, it's about reigniting a spark that has perhaps been dimmed by years of routine, health issues, or simple emotional distance that accumulates over time. Because when a man over 60 takes the time to truly learn his partner's needs, to slow down and listen, to approach intimacy as an emotional experience rather than just a physical one, something changes, not just in the bedroom, but in the entire relationship. And often men who make these small adjustments find that their partner responds with more openness, more warmth, and even more desire than they've seen in years. Because when a woman feels truly understood and emotionally connected, her body follows her mind, and the physical closeness becomes far more satisfying for both. Which is why taking the time to avoid rushing into the main event and ensuring that your touch is varied, intentional, and sensitive can be transformative. Yet many men, especially as they age, feel pressured by their own performance anxieties or health challenges and try to make intimacy as quick as possible, ironically creating the very disappointment and disconnection they fear. So instead of letting fear drive your actions, let curiosity guide you, explore her responses, experiment with new forms of touch, and allow moments of shared vulnerability, because at this stage of life you have the advantage of wisdom, of knowing what truly matters, of valuing quality over quantity, and that means you can take the time to explore her mind as much as her body, using slow, mindful gestures, eye contact, and even verbal affirmation to make her feel cherished. Because too many couples forget that words are also a form of foreplay, and telling her exactly what you find beautiful about her, even things unrelated to her body, can heighten her receptiveness and arousal in a way that purely physical contact never could. So by avoiding the mistake of skipping emotional buildup and by steering clear of repetitive, mechanical touching, you open the door to intimacy that is not only physically pleasurable but deeply fulfilling, which is especially powerful later in life when the act itself becomes less about urgency and more about shared connection. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to be in perfect health or have the stamina you did in your 20s to make this work. Because the most potent form of foreplay for many women over 60 is feeling emotionally secure, desired, and truly seen. So if you take nothing else from this, remember that by slowing down, varying your touch, and keeping emotional connection front and center, you can make your partner feel like the most wanted woman in the world, and in return, you'll likely experience a depth of intimacy, passion, and satisfaction that no pill, no gimmick, and no quick fix can ever match.